I think in order for us to first understand our identity in Christ and who He's made us to be, we need to see the foundation for that. And the reality is that in order for us to be identified with who Christ is, in order to have our identity in Christ, He first had to identify with us. And this is beautiful. It's overwhelming. It's really beyond our comprehension, because it has to do with Jesus becoming one of us, that He identified with us, that He humbled Himself to being born of a virgin and taking on humanity, that He became a human. He took on flesh. He came in the likeness of sinful flesh, so much so that if you would have passed Him on the street, you would have thought He was just another man. But He took on our humanity. He humbled Himself to that point. He took on our humanity to the point where He'd be, as the writer of Hebrews would say, that He would be tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin. That He humbled Himself as God, that He is God of very God, light of very light, that He is the great I Am, who James says he cannot be tempted by sin. He can't be. But in His humanity, He humbled Himself to be tempted by sin. I can't fully understand that, but what I see is Jesus identifying with us in our humanity and our weakness to the point of being tempted. Look how, or listen how the writer of Hebrews talks about this in Hebrews chapter 2. He says, "Since therefore the children share in flesh and blood, He Himself, Jesus, likewise partook of the same things, that through death He might destroy the one who has the power of death, that is the devil, and deliver all those who through fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery. For surely it is not angels that He helps, but He helps the offspring of Abraham. Therefore, He had to be made like His brothers in every respect." So he truly becomes one of us. He truly unites with us in what it means to be human, to the point of temptation and suffering in every respect, so that He might become a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God to make propitiation for the sins of the people. For because He Himself has suffered when tempted, He is able to help those who are being tempted. So to think of this, that Jesus identifies with us in our humanity, in being tempted, and in suffering. Not just suffering, I mean a life of suffering, as He is surrounded. He enters into this world in its sinful condition and suffers hunger and thirst and betrayal by friends and disappointment and all the things that we go through in life. He experiences, yet He never sins. And he identifies with us so much that, and the purpose of this is so that He can be a merciful and faithful high priest, that He could bring us into a relationship with His Father. And in order to do that, He had to identify with us to the point of God the Father seeing Him as guilty of our sin. So He enters into our situation to the point of becoming sin for us. That He's so identified with you and me that God the Father, when Jesus is on the cross, He punishes Him for our sin, our guilt, our shame, and He takes the penalty that we deserve. And He absorbs the wrath of God. He takes our hell. Jesus so identifies with us that He dies in our place under our penalty. It's overwhelming. It's beautiful. It's the gospel. But because of that, because He identified with us in our guilt and our shame and our weakness and our sin and our penalty, we get to identify with Him in His victory, in His resurrection, in His holiness, in His righteousness, in His goodness, to the point where the scriptures say that we are in Christ. Listen to Colossians 3. This is awesome. Listen to Colossians 3. "If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on the things above, not on the things of earth. Listen, for you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with Him in glory." We are hidden with Christ in God. We are so identified with Jesus now through his life, his death, his resurrection. And as Paul would say in Romans chapter 6, that we died in his death, and we died to sin, and we were raised with him to walk in this newness of life. What newness of life? That we would so identify with Jesus in his victory and his resurrection, that the marks of that would bear out in our life, that we would live a life worthy of Jesus, live a life that honors Jesus, live a life that looks like the life that Jesus lived, by his power, by his grace, by his righteousness. This love we do.